thanks very much for speaking to me. So, of course, since the US-China trade war and then COVID subsequently, there's been a lot of talk about supply chains and, how important they are for international trade, etc., etc. Just tell us a little bit about the work that you guys do at Enhanced Supply Chains Solutions. What is it that you offer, and also what kind of customers do you have currently?
When you mention the global sort of supply chain challenges, that's probably the last few years has made supply chain a bit more of a hot topic. The fact that a lot of countries are starting to centralize their supply chain and de-risk them by not sort of making China their only factory. We at Inhance provide systems and technology and services around the supply chain space. Everything from demand and supply planning to inventory optimization to transport management systems, warehouse management systems, and so on. So it's quite a broad set of services. We have quite a few local customers, retailers like Clicks, Spar, Pick n Pay. We have manufacturing clients like Clover, PPC, Italtel Group, etc. And we also have, a fair number of offshore clients as well, some in the US and some in Europe as well.
Excellent. So how do you see the land lying right now in terms of supply chains and the difficulties that arise around them, especially around the Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, I think I suppose there's been 3 years of sort of progressive supply chain shocks, to begin with a real contraction for about 6 months when COVID was at its worst, and that really meant manufacturers and distributors were actually running very low volumes. You saw oil prices dip and capacity becoming available on sea and air freight. And then you had a kind of almost return to normal, and accelerated demand where you didn't have enough capacity on the sea and in the air. And then and from that you had some quite big sort of global supply chain log jams. And then I think we saw from there, a bit of overheating of the global economy because there'd been so much stimulus in the US and Europe and so on. And I think that's also sort of accelerated demand. And then this year, when we thought we'd had 2 years of sufficient pain and punishment, we had Russia invading Ukraine, which itself, I think has caused a lot of problems around, commodity prices, obviously, things like oil, gas, fertilizer, and so on, food security to some extent. Russia and Ukraine are quite big food producers, and I think that's also we've seen because of that, companies are having to rethink their supply chain strategies. They have to think more decentralized because these monolithic warehouses with sort of a lot of transport out of them is an expensive way to operate. So yeah, we've seen a lot of demand for our type of work and for our analytical capability.
Since I see that you've grown by about 300% in the past few years, not bad going. So RMB Ventures have decided to invest in your business. What do you what sort of benefits do you think you're going to derive from this tie-up with RMB Ventures?
Yeah, I think probably two main areas, I would say. I think the first is RMB Ventures bring a good structure, good governance, good advice in terms of capital allocation and how to think about returns and so on. So that's something that, sort of we as engineers appreciate because it's a different lens on our world. And I think the other thing is RMB Ventures have access to capital. So we do, over the next few years, intend to grow a lot more, and some of that through acquisition. And if we do need capital, we can get it.
So apart from having good partnerships with the likes of RMB Ventures, what are some of the other key ingredients that you think will be needed for your company to progress?
I think in today's sort of supply chain world, and in fact in broader business, things like process automation, digitization of supply chains, and that sort of autonomous process is really coming to the forefront. So I think for us, what's critical is that we continue to build on our historical successes with process automation, and we make sure that we're leading from a automation and digitization point of view.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.